Welcome to our webinar, Agile Research, Deliver Business Intelligence in 48 Hours. I'm your host, Monica Gilson, the Marketing and Events Manager for M3 Global Research. I am joined by Paul O'Shaughnessy, our Executive Vice President of Global Sales here at M3 Global Research. Paul joined us earlier this year, bringing 21 years of experience working in the pharmaceutical industry. Throughout his career, Paul has worked with big pharma and biotechs and gained a deep understanding of the importance information plays in supporting strategy and driving decision-making. Paul will be taking questions at the end. You can submit them anytime during the webinar by using the Q&A function. If you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Both of these options are available in the webinar console. I'll now hand it over to Paul to dive in.
Thank you, Monica. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I think it's important as we set the scene for today's webinar, just to rehash on the word Agile. Obviously, Agile is a buzzword within our industry at the moment, and means many different things to different people. So for the purpose of the next 20-25 minutes, when we talk about Agile, we are speaking about conducting and delivering market research within a 48-hour window. And that's our premise for Agile. As Monica said, I've been working in the healthcare industry for 21 years, big pharma to biotechs. I have worked with companies such as Thomson Science, GFK, Cello Health, and I have worked with teams to deliver solutions from individual brand leaders straight through to multifaceted launch teams and those in between. And it's my delight to be able to be here today speaking to you. So we asked the question at the start, can you conduct research in 48 hours? And for me, that's an absolute yes. Now, there are obviously parameters and there are various mechanisms and functions you need to have to facilitate this. And what I'm going to do today is share my experience that has been gained as we at M3 have produced our Agile offerings, to share those with you for anybody who may be planning either now or in the future to also have access, utilize, or dare I say even build their own Agile offering. So if we look at the agenda that we are going to go through today, again, is there a need for Agile research? Yes, absolutely. What are the basics required to deliver Agile research? How can we be Agile with today's compliance requirements? And finally, is it value for money? So is there a need for Agile research? Yes. There is most definitely a need today, and there always has been. I remember back in the late 90s, we used to do Agile research all the time. I would get a request from clients. We would phone 6, 8, maybe oncologists, opinion leaders, and we would have some answers back within 24, 48, 72 hours. We'd often field quick surveys, pulse surveys again, get them back within 24, 48 hours. Although back at those times, it was easier to do so. There wasn't as much compliance. There wasn't as many different factors that can sometimes slow down our ability to do Agile. But if we also look, where do we see a need for Agile research today? Because there are many different ways that you can look at this. But in my experience, there are 6 core areas that an Agile offering can be suited for. So for those of you who may be working and supporting a business development team in a pharmaceutical company, you will know that these guys don't have luxury of time. They generally are trying to make decisions relating to maybe a strategic purchase or sale in a very short period of time. They may need to get a baseline on a TPP, on a company, on a therapy area, speak to some KOLs, or do a quick survey to help them understand should they be going with a decision to maybe move forward with the next stages in a purchase, or making the decision to step away from that. And this is a very important function, and being able to have agility here is very important, particularly in today's environment, because if they make the wrong decision or take too much time, a competitor will beat them to it. A lot of people have just gone through a strategy meetings, confirming that the strategy rolled out at the beginning of the year is still working, and also enhancing it based on many of the different options that have happened during the year. So we here in research have often been asked by our clients, oh, I've just come out of a strategy meeting, 6-7 questions have come up. We are regathering in 2 or 3 days' time. I'd love to be able to have some answers to those questions, to go back into the room and say, hey, we thought about this, we discussed this, we've done a quick survey, we got responses from 50 oncologists. It looks like we're in the right area. It looks like we're in the wrong area. We need to do more and better understand. An ideal vehicle for helping people planning their strategy. We've also seen several times where information from a sales rep will come back to a brand team. Suddenly a competitor is doing something different. They have a new campaign, maybe new pricing out there. And the brand team needs to know, is this a localized, or is this a regional, or is this an international strategy that has been adopted and laid out? And again, you know, the sales teams and the brand teams will need to get a steer on this really quickly. So an agile approach here has been and will be quite a significant tool to help in this area. We've also seen where medical affairs teams have suddenly got an emergency inquiry. They've got a report that there are more adverse events being reported in a region than is expected, and they need to figure out, you know, what is leading to this, and the need to sample, for example, you know, clinics in Massachusetts who are suddenly saying that we are getting more adverse events. Is this true? Is it that they're misunderstanding, misdiagnosing, actually applying their product to the right patient at the right time? Again, a great function for an agile tool. And of course, we also know conferences, congresses, competitors presenting new clinical data, a company presenting new clinical data itself. How has that been received? How has that been fed back? Will it actually change prescribing habits? What has been the feedback from the delegates that have been there? And ideally, when something like this breaks, people need responses in a very short time frame. We saw last year a policy change in diabetes. And I remember working with several clients as they were going through this. And on a weekly basis, there were new questions being asked, new assumptions being made, assumptions being put back that had been made because people were anticipating all kinds of changes. And the frequency of requests we were getting through that period to do short pulse, quick turnaround surveys was immense. So yes, I believe there has always been a need for Agile, and there will always be a need as we go forward into our business going in the future. So let's look at some of the basic requirements to deliver Agile research. So M3 have been building a suite of Agile offerings now for over a year and a half. And some of the things that we have found have been very necessary to give a customer and a client confidence in ability to do Agile research are as follows. So it's important that whoever you're engaging with, we found, has a large panel of profiled healthcare professionals. This is really important because you need to have confidence in the feasibility and that the questions are going out to the correct number of respondents that will actually give you a then that is worthwhile. This will also allow a company to be able to guarantee respondents to you. You know, on average, you still need to have some robustness to the answers to the questions you are posting. We feel that that is somewhere between 15 and 50, depending on specialty and country, within a shorter time frame, i.e. 48 hours, 2 days. We also have had lots of feedback from clients who say that they love a self-launch tool, but a lot of them are so time restrained that they also need a managed service and a managed approach. And again, when you are looking at some of the services out there, or you're thinking about what you need for your teams internally, this is very important. For example, if I come out of that dreaded strategy meeting at 9 p.m. at night, which is not unusual, and I've got 8-9 questions that I really need to get some feedback on, I would like to be able to launch that myself tonight. Alternatively, there may be scenarios where I'm too time restrained and I just want to have a quick call with my vendor and explain what I'm trying to achieve and leave it in their hands, a managed service. Again, having both is very important for our clients today. It's also important that the company that you're working with, and dare I say you yourself, understand that this is a pulse type offering. So there needs to be a limit on the questions that you are asking to get reasonable answers back in a shorter time frame. For example, we have found that so long as the questions are limited to somewhere between 5 and 10, and are structured in a way that are easy to digest and therefore answer, you will get a higher rate of respondents than, for example, if you build a very complex study and you're looking to answer 20 or dare I say even more questions in a 2-day period. So there's a little bit of trading that you need to understand here. You have to sacrifice some things to gain others. For me personally, one of the things that I have found is essential for this is that you're working with a project team that understands 48 hours means 48 hours. You as a client or your clients are trying to make very quick decisions. So it's no use telling them, I will have something for you in 2 days, and in 2 days' time, only having half of it or even 3/4 of it. You have to promise and deliver on that promise. And the project management team that is sitting behind that is essential. They understand and are working to that 2-day time frame. And this is important, particularly around quality control, particularly around translations, particularly around utilizing a very robust service in the correct way. But also, it's important that they're able to go back to the client and say, we know this is what you're looking to do. It's not achievable in a 48-hour period, or it is, or we can do 70% of it, but this element just won't work. And then the client can make a very informed decision about moving forward. Ability to program and launch quickly is a key, and as I was talking about in project management. And one of the reasons it's become very important is with the launch of GDPR last year and other compliance requirements, both in industry side and within clients' companies. And we're going to touch on compliance on the next slide. But again, it's something you have to bear in mind. Just because you're doing it quick doesn't mean you can do it outside of the proper industry requirements and the proper policies that you need to adhere to. Last 2 points. Pricing that reflects short study. Again, agility is one thing, getting the answers is great in this time frame, but it has to be priced accordingly. So when you're doing something that's quick and fast and you're giving an N of between 15 and 50, the cost has to reflect that. Otherwise, it will prohibit your clients from actually engaging and taking advantage of these types of tools. And finally, this is very important. I know we have some pharma company clients on the line and some market research agencies. The outputs from this type of service have to be user-friendly. So what I mean by that, it's not just about getting a data file that a lot of professional insights people can easily engage with and manage. But you also need additional tools. For example, a web interface, tabs showing, the ability to move the data and represent it in charts and export those charts. All of these are essential for very busy brand teams and insights people supporting these to bring their decks together to that strategy meeting, to the BD team, to the medical affairs team, etc., and show it the story in numbers that are easily digestible. So there's some of the basic requirements that we have noticed and had to work to actually deliver against over the last 18 months. Now, the big question, how can we be agile with today's compliance requirements? And this is where things obviously can get more complicated. So I've been working now in a very evolved way with many companies over the last 8 months. And each company takes a slightly different approach to compliance and also to agile and quick turnaround research. So first of all, it's worth noting here that agile, when we talk about 48 hours, for some companies, agile could be a week or even 7 working days, because that's substantially quicker than how they currently work. So I just want to put that out there. And now coming back to compliance. The main learning I have is that if you sit with your compliance team and your chosen vendor, the 3 of you sit together and you explain what you're trying to achieve, why you're trying to achieve that, and what it's going to mean for your company, your end clients. I have found that compliance teams are open to finding ways to support you. I'm not saying they're going to say, oh, we see the reason of that, forget everything we've put in place, carry on. No, they're not going to do that. But in general, they will work with you and you will find that your agility here will come down from where it is. It may never make 2 days, but like I say, you may get it down to a 5-day process, which is very important. So some of the things that we have worked with teams, internal teams at companies to help them abide by compliance, abide by GDPR and other necessary requirements are template queries and types of questions. You may find that in general, a lot of the ad hoc questions you get, and I know this seems to be counter indicative, is that they will run across verticals. So for example, you may find that you are able to conduct some internal research where actually you will find there is 20, 30, 40 questions, even though they are ad hoc, that present themselves at different times. You can then work to gather those and actually work with compliance to get them signed off. So when questions start to come from you, you've got a preset number of templates that you can launch to address the issue that you're looking at. It takes a little bit of time, but it's very powerful. And once it's in place and signed off, you're freed up to do what you need to do from an agility perspective. You can also talk to your compliance team about looking at this type of service as a competitor intelligence or supporting business development, because the tools that are put in place for those scenarios sometimes have a different weighting on compliance internally. And you may find that because we're not talking about it in a market research type bracket, that it is easier for your compliance team to make some recommendations that help you get these type of requests through quicker. I also think that it's very important to work with a company again, that can project manage this, because this is very important, because why compliance are generally nervous about this type of research is because they have seen in the past things go wrong, and because it's happening in a very fast manner, isn't being picked up correctly, and therefore exposes the company that they're protecting to risk. So again, that kind of three-way conversation between yourself, your compliance team, and the vendor you're looking to work with is very important, and for them then to make sure the correct project management team, which I've spoken about previously, understands and is working to the pharmacovigilance requirements within that organization and the other requirements that would come down from these conversations. And again, as I said at the beginning, Agile, while we're talking about it in a 48-hour environment, can actually mean a longer time frame within a client or company, but that greatly reduces compared to the current time frame that they're operating within. So to end, do we think that Agile research is value for money? Yes, absolutely. It can help teams answer some of those burdensome questions that present themselves that need an immediate action. If priced correctly, it will be exceptional value for money. And if it can be delivered within a 48-hour environment, then it will give a competitive advantage in some areas for your clients. I'm now open to questions.
Thank you, Paul. As you mentioned, we do have time for a few questions, so if you haven't submitted one yet, please do so now using the Q&A function of the webinar console. Before we start taking questions, I wanted to let you know that following the webinar, you'll be taken to a quick 7-question survey where we welcome your insight on today's presentation. And also let you know that our next webinar will take place on Tuesday, the 15th of October, presented by our Director of Client Services, Tim Dungy, and he will discuss Agile research in action. We will include a registration link in the email of this webinar recording. We hope you'll join us for the second part of our discussion on Agile research. And we have our first question in. Paul, how do you manage adverse events in Agile?
Great question, Monica. Really good question. It can be difficult. You must obviously come back to some of the things I was talking about. So it's about project management, it's about quality control. But one of the things that we do here at M3 is to limit open-ended questions. As a matter of fact, we go as far as to say, if you can at all avoid an open-ended question, please do so. Because once you get to that stage, what you generally find is you're asking yes, no, ranking questions, comparison questions. The kind of Achilles heel is if you do give an open-ended question. But even so, if you get an open-ended question and you've got the right team and they're using the right tools, they will be able to see that answer come in before they actually pass it on. And the minute they see an adverse event in that, trigger the relevant reporting processes to the company under the pharmacovigilance guidings that we have been given. So again, as I mentioned earlier in it, it's about project management, a strong team, it's about quality control, and it's about recognizing and working within a company's guidelines. But one of the secrets is to limit the number of open-ended questions you have. Yes, we have a question here talking about how, if at all, does M3's Agile research differ from a pulse survey or a mini poll offering? Great question. In a lot of ways, it doesn't. It is a pulse type survey. It's been called pulse or poll type surveys. But one of the things that very much differ from this is the speed of which it's turned around. So when you are working with M3 on our offerings, we will guarantee you profile respondents, a specific N, delivered, as I said, somewhere between 15 and 50, depending on the country and the specialty, within a 48-hour period. In other pulse surveys that we have done, that may not be guaranteed, or the time frame may take a little bit longer. So the main difference here is that it's guaranteed time frame and the response, and then is that we have now, and we deliver a set of web-enabled tools that actually allows you then to see the data on a question level, use tabs and cross tabs that we have applied to those, and then take that data into a charting function and export it into PowerPoint if that's your requirement. There's a great question here. Do your timelines reflect translation? When we are translating, it adds an extra day. The timelines we reflect on 48 hours is for an English-only survey, but if we were translating into French, German, or dare I say even Japanese, it then takes 72 hours. Another great question. Do we see higher response rates for 5-minute pulses compared to traditional 30-minute LOIs? Yes. Quite simply is the answer to that. The reason being is because in general, physicians can take these. There is not a lot of thought needed to answer 5 or 10 questions in 5 minutes. So they will do it. Your 30-minute service seems to be a little bit more in-depth. Generally, there are a lot more difficult questions that we are looking to get the clients to answer. There will be various conjoint techniques, etc., deployed within. So in a simple answer, respondents are more likely to take a shorter survey. That's what we have found here. As we're getting close to time, I've got 2 more questions. 48 hours to which you refer, is that just for field work, not including time for programming and translation? Okay, so the 48 hours includes programming, field work, collection of the data, and distribution of the data. Translations, as I've said, can add another day to that. I have actually seen 48 hours turned around with translations, but just to caveat, I will say it can take an extra day. Are these surveys mobile enabled? Yes, they can be. Again, that needs to be specified up front when you are requesting it, but that ability is absolute.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. We look forward to hearing from you and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.